Do you want to be the one to click the button? Here we go.
Yeah,
Now we're
started the recording.
Perfect. Okay. Let's get started. So welcome everyone. This is the introduction and training session for the Design Scope of Services online tool. We're going to have a small panel of us here to help you guide through the whole process, jump in and out of the presentation, and hopefully answer any technical, legal, or otherwise fun questions that you may have along the process. As you can see here on the screen, this consists of the team that you will be hearing throughout the process or here and there to answer questions. So just starting from the top, my name is Mariano Micarelli, part of the Production Support Office, and I am joined in by everyone here on the list. Please go ahead and introduce yourselves to the rest of the group.
I'm Ruth Roaza. I'll be walking you through the tool today. I'm the technical computer lead in terms of this particular application. So welcome to the webinar. I'm glad you're here.
This is Rob Quigley. I'm in the Production Support Office as well, and I'll be helping answer some of the questions as well.
I'm Stephanie Clemens, and I'm gonna, if y'all have any questions, technical difficulties, I will be at the help desk to help you get through it.
Hi, I'm Kenny Kwon. I'm a developer.
Kenny is the lead programmer on the application, so we're very proud of him.
So in other words, if something doesn't work, Kenny usually fixes it. And if you have any technical questions, we're going to go ahead and rely on Kenny's answer because we would all be making it up otherwise. So to give a little explanation how we're breaking this up, we're going to try to logically walk through the whole process of how this tool is intended for somebody who's coming into the tool, getting started, getting their hands into writing a scope, and there's different ways that you can actually apply different techniques. Somebody who may not have all those capabilities and just comes in to have viewing permissions. And finally, all the way at the top, once we cover how it's done and who can do what, the overall role that can do what everybody else can do, plus do a couple of tweaks behind the scenes would be the template editors. So we're also going to cover what a template is and how it's manipulated and so on. So with that, quick little breakdown, I wanted just to tell everyone these little sessions are going to be broken up into individual training videos that will be available on the Production Support Project Management website. We'll have that along with all the links that you're going to see throughout the presentations, and everything's going to be kind of together, so easy to follow. So with that said, thank you all for being here, and Ruth, it's your show.
Okay, so first of all, we're just going to talk about how we get started with the application. There's some basic information like how to request an account, what are the different levels of access and the rules that are available in the application, where do I find it, and in general, how does it work? So this first section is just an overview of the Design Scope of Service tool. Anyone in the initial list, the spreadsheet that Mariano compiled, will get an email in the next couple of days, probably starting tomorrow morning. Otherwise, if someone wasn't part of that list, they need to request access. This is an authorized username, password protected application, and our process for creating the accounts is that if you want an account, there's a coordinator within your district. We're calling them the District Design Scope of Service Template Editor. Send them an email with your name, email address, and your phone number, and what level of access you want. It's either a scope editor, a reviewer, or a template editor. And I'm going to explain those levels in a few minutes. If you don't know who your template editor is in the district, just check with your design project manager and they should know who that is. Once that person, and some districts have a couple of them, so it could be more than one person that you could request it from. Once the template editors authorize the account, they'll send an email to our DSOS help desk. And the help desk at that point will create the account and send you a direct email saying we created your account. And you'll also get an email notification from the system that gives you the actual login information. That may go to your junk mail. Emails from the system are sometimes trapped in people's junk mail. So if you go into your junk mail, please mark it never to block from sender's domain. That way you'll get future emails from us. If you were part of that initial email list and you check your email and you haven't gotten anything by Monday, then please give us an email at our help desk email right here and we'll get you set up. There are 3 different levels of access that we have in the DSOS. We have a reviewer who has the ability to read the scopes online, and they can also export it as a Word document. The scope editor can also read and export, but they can create new scopes or edit existing scopes for their district. The template editor is our super user. They can view, create, edit scopes, and in addition, they can create and edit templates. Once they've made a template, those templates are available for other people in their district, the scope editors, to use to create new scopes or apply to scopes. If you're a scope editor or a reviewer and you see a scope that would be a great candidate in your district to be a template, you just notify your template editor. They'll review it, edit it if it needs to be, and then publish it. The design scope of service tool, that direct link to it will be in the email that you receive. It will also be available on the scope page of the production support under the standard scope of services section. And that should be there this week. That's the plan.
The page is going to look a little different by the end of tomorrow or halfway through tomorrow. So this is the best Snagit we could get for, we had available at the time. This will evolve a little bit and you guys should be able to follow smoothly everything that that Ruth is talking about.
Once you're going to the tool, one thing to keep in mind, it works well in Google and Chrome and Foxfire. It does not work in Internet Explorer or Edge. So when you're using it, please use Chrome or Firefox. And let us know if you find it works out in Safari. We've checked it a little bit and it looks like it might work, but we haven't thoroughly tested it. So I can't guarantee Safari, but the Chrome and Firefox, it has been tested in and works well. In general, how the scope of service tool works is we have a wizard that walks you through a bunch of questions. And as you're answering that questions, it's building the scope behind the scenes. And once you're through that, you come to a page view where you can do further customizations and edits as needed. And once you're happy with it, you export it to Word, and that is what you go forward with in processing through procurement and things like that. The page view is available online for reviewers if someone's assigned as a design scope of service reviewer, so that they can go in and review it as well, or they can provide comments on the Word document and get it back to you. Does anybody have any questions at this point?
Yes, we do have one from Raul. Is there a master list of the district scope template editors for all districts? Should this be available on the web?
We do have a list. And interestingly, this is kind of funny, we have it available on the design scope of service tool. but we also have a contact link on the login, and we could put that list there as well, because we assume it will change over time as people change in positions, but that way it would draw directly from the database and you wouldn't have a stagnant list that might need to be updated. It would update as it would, and we could put it there as well. That way you could get to it without actually having a login.
One of the things that we were considering early on is making sure that the best information is available to everyone. And if we start attaching names to it and updates occur, we don't know if we're actually looking at the latest and greatest. Obviously, the majority of the time, it will be accurate information. When in doubt, if somebody from the outside assigned to a project, you should know who your PM is. And any FDOT PM will know their own chain of command and will know who has the abilities to create templates. We try to limit the number of template editors, so we avoid creating too many templates that are very similar, but also just too many cooks in the kitchen in certain situations. So the PMs will definitely know who the template editors are, and it should be one step away from just one email away from always having the correct information. We didn't want to nail it down, but if there is a need and this group agrees that that really would be worthwhile information, we will make sure to have that out on the website. Thanks, Raul.
Okay, next question. Will the link automatically open in the correct web browser?
No, if your default browser is set to Internet Explorer, it will not automatically open. You will get a message, a little pop-up that tells you that it's not going to work, and just to copy the URL into the correct one.
It's actually gonna, we've had a few sessions where I had forgotten, and I will email Ruth and Kenny's like, is it down again? Is something going on? And we're playing with it, and then we realize, oh, it was me the whole time. So no, we don't have the actual browser itself won't tell you why it's broken. It'll just say that it's not functioning. So you won't know if it's on the back end or if it's something that you did wrong. We try to emphasize that not just here in the intro, but throughout the presentation, that you should be using Chrome or Firefox.
Next question. Once you have transferred the document to Word, if you have to make corrections, can you make changes in the Word document, or do you have to go back to the site to do it?
Rob, if you don't mind jumping into this, what I'm going to say is it depends what you're going to do with it from that point forward. If you want to keep going back and referencing a very complete, up-to-date scope, we recommend going back into the tool and having a scope editor or someone above that, template editor, going in and adjust the scope language accordingly. So you will always be looking at the latest language that you guys have put together. If from that point on you're moving on with the Word document and there's no reason to go back, then that's where all the edits will remain in the Word document moving forward. It is intended to give you like a milestone of where you are in the project scope development. And if you needed to always spring back to that point, especially if you're creating a template out of it or any other information that's pertinent moving forward to future edits, we would recommend going back to the tool.
Yeah, that's correct, Mariano. The current tool that we've had out there for quite some time was using the macros in Word, and it outputted to a Word file that you could then take from there and do whatever you needed to do. So likewise, this tool outputs to Word, so it's a standard Word file from that point on.
Okay, we've had a couple of folks join us a little bit late and wanting to know have they missed anything major yet?
We went through a little bit of getting started, how to find the site, which will be on the production support website this week, and how to get requests. I guess the big thing is if you have already sent your request for an account through your district to Mariano, then you should get an email tomorrow with your account information. Otherwise, just ask your district contact person about getting an account and we'll get you set up.
And Lay, that wants to verify that what we just mentioned is accurate. You will have an opportunity of viewing this whole complete session broken up into individual segments that we will dive in a little deeper, topic by topic. So don't feel too bad. If you feel that you wanted to see it from the very beginning, this will be compiled into a small collection of training videos, and it will be made available to everyone through the PM website.
One more question from Bobby. How will the template creator know if there are updates to the scope that may affect their scope?
Bobby, let's put a pin on that question and get back to it when we're actually diving a little deeper into the template content. Just so we don't mix the questions with the topic, I think that's a worthwhile question, but we're going to come back to it when we're talking more direct about templates. So thanks, Bobby. If we don't cover it, just remind me.
No more questions at this time.
Perfect.
Okay, let's go on.
Thank you, Stephanie.
In this section, we're going to go through the wizard and show you how to set up a scope. Questions that we're trying to answer during this demonstration are: what is a wizard? What do we mean by that term? What does it cover within the scope of service? And can I stop while I'm in the middle of it? And you know, if I need to go get a phone call or something like that, can I stop and come back later? And how do I check for completeness? How do I know when I'm done? And we'll be covering all those in a demonstration of the wizard. So I am going to switch my screens right now and pull up the demonstration. Okay, can everybody see that now?
Yes, it's clear.
Okay, so I am showing this demonstration. I'm logging on to our test server and as a district design scope of service editor. And what you'll do is just put your username and password that you'll get in your email, click sign in. If you forget your password, there's a link there. And there's also, this was the link I was talking about, that's contact us, which provides our help desk phone number and email right now. Once you've logged in, you'll see our landing page that shows places where you can create scopes, and it also shows where you can find scopes that have already been created in your district. This table, there's the table down below to do that. There's also under the little head up there, places where you can change your password. You can update your contact information, which we really recommend in case somebody's trying to contact you, who's another user of the tool. It's good to keep your phone number and contact information up to date. Or you can log out through that as well. There's a help icon, which will take you back to it will open up in a tab that'll take you to the production support scope page where these videos will be. And there's also under that help a contact list that includes the template editors for the districts. The table at the bottom of the screen is the list of the scopes that have been created in your district. It by default just shows 10, but you can pull down this little pull down and show up to 100 listings. The table is sortable and searchable. Anywhere it says search, you can start typing something in, you know, like the first few letters or numbers. you can do some pull downs, and you can also click the little double arrow to sort. To clear the search, you just hit that clear save search because it will remember your search as you go and use the tool. You can turn on and off columns under column visibility, and you can also export to Excel or CSV. But today what I'm going to concentrate on this part of the demo is actually creating a brand new scope instead of using one that is already existing. So I'm going to copy or type the FM number in there in that box and click load. And it will start at the wizard. The first screen is information that's just pulled from the work program, some basic information so you know what project you're working with. The next screen is asking if we're going to start a blank or use a template. I'm going to start from scratch using a blank standard scope of service. And here you'll see some of the information that was available in the work program is pulled in. Otherwise, I start putting in the numbers or putting in the answers to the questions. If I don't know one of the sections, I can skip it for now and come back later. Radio buttons mean you can choose one option from a list. Check boxes, you can choose more than one. You can choose as many as apply. These text boxes at the bottom are places for optional comments that you click on the yellow link and it opens up the box where you can enter information. As you're going through the wizard, you just click save at the bottom of each page and it goes to the next page, and it's saving as you go. So as soon as you finish one of the little pages, you hit save and that part's saved. So you can actually leave at any time. This is showing you some options for pull down lists. For example, we know what the universe of major work groups and minor work groups is. So I can just start typing. I don't have to remember the exact name. I can just remember one number or one letter in it, and I can start. It starts making the list as a subset until it finds the one that I want, or I click on it once I found it. And as you can see, it's going through each section of the scope. Like right now, I'm on section 2, project description. It pulled in that little project description from the work program, but you can go in there and edit that and add a little bit more information because that's going to be part of the paragraphs. And now here I'm looking at all the possible activities for activities 3, 4, and 5, and I'm just selecting yes or no for each one. And if I said yes to something, then it's going to ask me in the next screens for more information about each of those. So I'm answering those questions as I go and filling in the information. Here's an example of a little table. Sometimes we need to fill in a little table of information, and this number indicates how many records it's going to add. I just said 1, so it shows just 1, and then I fill in the information for the fields. And I can add another record if I want to by either updating that number or clicking add another record. And then as I just fill in the information and click save to continue. These particular kinds of text boxes are just free form, so whatever information makes sense for this scope is what you would put in. This is an example of our text editor, and I'm just showing you a little bit about how you can format it. You can put bullets or numbers, you can highlight, you can underline. You can also enter, by clicking the little image there, you can also upload a picture if you need to go in there. And again, I'm just filling in the blanks and continuing with parts of the scope that I said were yes, they should be in this scope. Again, the check boxes, I could do 1 or more. I can we put optional comments throughout the whole scope. So anywhere, if you have special text that you use in your district or that's special for this particular scope, you can always add it to the section. Now this section are all the things that I said were not applicable. And it's just giving me an opportunity that if I have something I need to write in there, I can. Now, as we go through the rest of the activities, it's going to have a page for each one. So I just did activity 6. Now I'm doing activity 7. Notice when I say yes, it's asking for more information. So I'm entering the information here. If I have more than one thing on this particular field, I type it in and I click add, and it will build the list for me. I'm gonna show you what not to do though. You can make a mistake. If you don't click the add, it doesn't add it to the list. And you'll see later when we're looking at it that I only had electric in there and not electric and cable because I only clicked add for the cable. So you don't want to do that. And here I'm just looking through permits. You'll notice I could put like just the acronym of an agency. I can put the name of the permit and it starts narrowing down the list so that you can find the permits you need to identify for that particular project. And now we're moving to activities 9 through 18. And whether I said no, and you'll notice it kind of collapsed everything so that because I wasn't, I had said no to that. So it doesn't need more information. It knows it's not applicable. Again, when I say yes, it builds and adds more information. And when I say no, it just will code it and show up in the scope as not applicable. When there's a parent activity that has sub activities under it, if I say yes to that, then like in this case, I had the option to say yes or no to each of the subcategories. Here I'm actually showing how to add more than one record to a table. And I'm up to activities 25 and 26 right now. This is a very simple scope. I am just showing you the functionality. Don't look at this in terms of content for a appropriate scope. I'm just trying to get through the activities to show you the various different types of input options that we have. And I'm going to say no to this one as well. If you want to have optional comments to explain why you're saying it's not applicable, you can put those there. And your comments would appear in the Word document. If you don't add it though, there won't be anything in the Word document. Okay, now the next thing it's asking me is for the project schedule, but I'm just going to pretend I don't have that information at my fingertips. So I'm going to skip it right now just so I can show you what happens if you do skip one of these answers. Notice this particular screen is the last screen of the wizard, and it does tell me which fields I skipped. Like I did not put a consultant name in, and I'm like, okay, that's fine because I'm not ready. I don't know who the consultant is, so that's okay. So it's just telling you if it's blank or not. It's not telling you if you have to have it or not, because that's kind of dependent on the actual scope, but it does tell you what you skipped. And so it's telling me here, yeah, I skipped that whole project schedule information. And then I can just click finish setup and it'll save and bring me to the page view. And this page view is where we will make custom edits, which I'm going to show you in the next section. So let me get back to the PowerPoint. And you should be seeing my PowerPoint presentation. Now, are there any questions about that section? Going through the wizard?
Yes. Let's see, how do we label a certain service for optional service?
I'm not sure what.
This, here's where you can just go ahead and add it to the scope and add your comments to it. Are we saying that this is something outside of the scope that you're considering adding in? Or am I missing the question a little bit? Rob, I'm going to lean on you for this one as well.
I think it's asking about optional services. So something that may come up later during the scope. So
Oh.
I guess it's handled the same way you handle it now. And you can add additional comments in the optional comments box to identify those things as well right now.
So I guess
we-
they would say, yes, include it, but then clarify in the section that is
That is
optional.
how I imagine treating it in the meantime. We don't have a way of creating a tab or an activity and identify it as optional, but you have the place to add any additional language that would denote what the intent of the section is.
Okay, next question from Carla. Where within the SOS does the commitments identified in PD&E will be denoted which appear in PSEE commitments module?
That's a good question. So I don't know offhand. The commitments, I don't know that we have a commitments section in the current scope of services. So but definitely you could notate anything that appears to be a commitment that you want to carry over and pass on to the consultant, within the optional boxes.
And I am going to show you in the next section when we're editing how to add an additional section. So if there is something that you're not finding, an activity that you want to put, if it's not there, you will see how to add a new section.
And also, once you output this tool gives you a Word file to work with. So if you do need to fine tune it from there, you can.
Okay. Next question is from Tracy. Will there be a template or guide that will let the user know what information he needs to have at hand when sitting down to create the scope?
No, not offhand. It's more of all the information you would need now. The interesting part of this tool that makes it way more powerful and easier to use is what we're going to show you in the next section, which is when you're starting to actually develop a scope and you're picking out, you're identifying your FM number. That will bring in a lot of the information that you used to need to know offhand or have available to you. It'll actually get pulled in from Work Program. So the process that Ruth just walked through of just going through the wizard is actually made a lot easier with all the information that's being pulled in from Work Program. And if you're paying attention closer to the beginning, the description of the project and all the information that at the end of the video got sped out into the page view, you will see on the next video what that information entails a little bit. And you'll get to see that you'll need a lot less information and background on the inner workings of what happened behind the creation of the scope. But in general, you will still need to know about the project as you're developing the scope as you would have before. Tracy, if you have any specifics that you you would identify or your PMs would kind of have with them while they're creating scopes. I would love to know to see if, just to verify offhand here, if that information is automatically being pulled in or it's something that you would kind of need to know. So if you want to identify that, we'll try to answer it right now.
And
Thanks, Tracy.
the other thing is, like Ruth just showed, once you get through the wizard, it'll show you the things that you did not fill in. So if you don't have a list going into it, you'll have a list of what you didn't input when you get done with the wizard. So now
And
you'll know.
to add to Rob's point, that same completeness check will be available outside of the wizard when you're writing up the scope in the page view. You will also be identifying, the tool will be identifying everything that is also missing. So if you don't get it on the first go around, you do have a shopping list to go back and fill in the missing information.
Next question is from Carla. Where does the work program data come from? How often is that table or link updated?
That's
So
a very good question.
the work program information is pulled. So the work program exports the data nightly and we pull it in nightly. So what information that they have in their export is what we have available to import. And so it's like every day that's updated.
Next question is from Jennifer. Will we be able to edit the Word document?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. All right. David would like to know. Oh, sorry. Go
Sorry,
ahead.
Steph. It's going to behave very similarly to the macros Word output that you guys have now. The Word document isn't going to necessarily lock you out of any section, so be careful what you edit once you're in there, because it will not safeguard you from adjusting things that shouldn't be adjusted.
Okay.
Good
Thank
point.
you. Next question is from David. Let's see. Do we use this tool after we do our ERC submittal for SOS?
The order of operations does not change. Whenever you're developing the scope now, as of today, you're going to do the exact same process moving forward. The niceties of using the tool itself is it'll always pull the latest language, the latest information from work program, and it gives you the wizard that helps you build out the majority of the project before jumping into all the individual data fields. But we're not altering the way that you do the large process of whether it's before or after. We're not changing the process of how or when, in fact, you do it, but rather what tool you use to accomplish the scope build out.
And next question, Jennifer would like to know, is this tool just for FDOT use or will consultants also use it?
Because it is a web-based tool, as long as you have the appropriate role and credentials to jump in and play around with the tool, you will be assigned jurisdiction of what FM numbers will become available when producing scopes. So once you have been granted access to the tool itself, you will also be given a jurisdiction, whether it be a district or multiple districts, and you may have different roles on different districts depending on how involved you are in the scope development or review. And you will have those credentials tied to the role, tied to the jurisdiction. And yes, we identify the need for consultants to develop the scopes as well. So as long as they are vetted through and allowed a username and password, they'll be treated as FDOT project managers.
All right, thank you. No further questions at this time.
Excellent.
Thank you,
Thank you,
everybody.
Stephanie.
Great questions. So the next part that we're going to talk about is actually writing the scope and editing what we just created. So I'm going to go over a little bit about the transition from the wizard to the page editor. And one question that has come up in the past before is, can I skip it? And the answer is yes. There's a toggle at the top that even at the very beginning, you can toggle. And once you've started that scope in the wizard, you can toggle it and go to the page view. And I'll show you where that is so you can see that. And how to add the project specific information to the scope that wasn't filled out in the wizard. I'll show you that, and how to export the scope to Word. So let me go ahead and get my screen up. And we'll go over editing the scope. Okay, you should be seeing the design scope of service tool back at the landing page.
We do.
Okay, so I'm continuing. I'm demonstrating like I've logged off and I'm coming back in, and I'm back at the landing page as the same user in the same district. And what I want to do is go continue working on that particular scope. So I just click the link in the table and it opens it up. One thing I want to point out at the top is that we try to help the user identify what needs to be filled out, what standard language, what they've already filled out, and it's basically different colors of background of the text that indicates this. It's either highlighted in yellow if it still hasn't been entered. If you have already filled it out, it'll show green. Purple is a question that you can actually go down into sections 1, 2, and 3 and actually see lots of questions, or I'm sorry, 1 and 2. You can go into sections 1 and 2 and go through the sections on this page view if you've decided to skip the wizard. At the very top also is where you would go to export the Word document. And here I'm just showing you also where the wizard, so that was the button to export. As you're going, you can save for draft, or you click the little wizard, get back to the wizard. If you're in the wizard, notice it says page view. Right now I'm in the wizard and I'm just checking, okay, I still need to fill out part of my project schedule. So I'm going to show you how to navigate there through our general navigation. The table of contents on the right shows you all the different sections. And notice as I scroll down, it automatically opens up into the section that I'm working on. And it'll close when I scroll down. You can also open it or close it yourself. Green means that it's a section that I have indicated that is included in the scope. If it's grayed out, that means it's a section that I said not applicable. And you'll see in a moment if I put my cursor over any of those grayed out, it'll actually have a red background. And that just means I indicated that it was not included. And I can go through here as a scope editor. I can go through here and like, oh, I didn't mean to make that not applicable. I can change it, and I can change the answers to the questions here in the page view as well. But I know I need to go to 219 to enter the information I skipped before. And notice the yellow highlights mean that there's some missing information. The optional comments are totally optional, they are not required, and you can skip those, but it's just highlighted to let you know that you did not answer that one yet. So I'm just clicking on the things that I do need to provide in my scope and continuing to fill it out. Now, one thing also, one thing I wanted to just point out again here is our text editor that you can just edit it. And when you're in this view, you just click outside, just above the text editor to get out of it and save that information. This green text is actually not something that you entered before, but it's kind of the default of the services to be performed by the department. And you can just check any of those off that do not apply. And then once you click out of it, it'll remember what you have checked on and what you have checked off. The standard language that isn't editable is just shown there in the black text on the white background. And otherwise, you can enter text in your optional comments. If you have additional information you want to provide in the scope, just put it in those comments and you can format it. One of the things the work group asked for was the ability to highlight things, underline. You'll notice we do not do italics and bold because the standard in the procedures for developing the standard scope of services that any user input is shown in the italics and bold. And I also wanted to show you how to add a new section. So you just go to the bottom and you can type in your title here and you put your section title. You can say how many sections, like if you have multiple, you can do more than one, or you can just add another one there and close when you're done. And it's added to the bottom. And you'll notice now in my completeness check, I have completed all the sections. And now it's ready for me to, it's ready for me to go ahead and send out for review or export if I need to. So my next video or my next section of the training is actually showing how to review that. So let me get back to my PowerPoint. And see if there's any questions.
Let's see. Raul had another question that I believe Rob was going to answer.
Yeah, I did answer that.
Okay.
Raul, and you make a great point regarding the ability to tie the scope of services to the staff hour estimation spreadsheet. That has definitely been on our minds the entire time, and we hope to be able to do that at some point in time. But right now our focus is to get the scope up and running, and we do hope to have some sort of tie to the staff hour estimation guidelines in the future. That is something that we're going to strive for. But you make a great point about the complexity. Possibly when we do make a tie, we could have the questions of complexity of different areas of the scope identified as something that you would select during the scope development, if known.
Thank you, Rob. Got a question from Carla. Although the production date can be pulled into from PSM, however, the production date at this point in time is based on the template project schedule. Let's see. The initial project.
Right now, the production dates are not being pulled in, so it's, however whatever it needs to be, it's actually selected. And it's an editable field.
Thanks, Ruth. Let's see. Oh, what is the purpose of displaying the production date?
It's a question for Mariano or Rob. It's part of this scope.
Especially if it hasn't been determined yet.
It doesn't necessarily need to be filled out at this point, and it could be edited. It's all the information available that will be made part of the final scope. You have the opportunity for inputting all those fields. Like we've shown more than once, you don't have to have everything with you to move forward and create a mostly complete scope. With that in mind, if you do not know or don't feel comfortable writing it in, all that information could be left blank as it is, either unknown or to be determined or to be edited down the road. So remember, once you create the Word document, you will have a lot more flexibility in how you edit and how you produce the final version of the scope. So if you don't have the information offhand, it will not prohibit you from moving forward and continuing the process through the Word document.
And I believe we carried over the fields that were already there in the design standard scope of services. So I guess that was probably one that was already in there.
It was. We tried to format it and clean up the looks of the macros version. We've had a lot of input from our core team throughout the process of the logic, how things are tied, what would be easier, better, faster, unnecessary, and we've trimmed a good chunk of fat. The output, we were trying very hard to make it look like a cleaner, more polished version than what we've been using up till now, but we didn't want it to be so radically different that it felt different. We just wanted to ease the unnecessary burden of knowing all the information or information that could be pulled in to the scope development. At any point, you could go back and make adjustments accordingly without having to figure it out like it's a completely new type of scope.
Thanks, Mariano. There are no further questions at this time.
Okay, thank you.
Great.
Thanks, everybody. Okay, our next section is concentrating on viewing a scope. And this would be from the perspective of somebody who is a reviewer, not an editor. I'm going to show briefly how to search for a scope on that landing page, view it using the scope online, and then export it to Word. And we'll spend a little time in the Word document so that you can see what comes out of it. And again, I am going to go ahead and pull up that demonstration so that I can go over that with you.
I'm really hoping that the group appreciates the fact that we've taken the video, so we would bypass any technical difficulties during this session. But obviously, as we stop and go and talk about everything, you guys will have an opportunity of getting snapshots of the whole process. Let's see if we have yet to pull the video through. I'm still seeing the PowerPoint, and here we go.
Good, thank you. Okay, so I am logged in as a reviewer, or I am logging in as a viewer, and going to the landing page. And again, I can search for things. I can sort by clicking on the column header. I can search by county, by project name. I just start typing in text. So, you know, depending on the field, it's either text or it's numbers. If you have multiple districts, it's actually, that's a pull down. But I know the FM number I'm looking for, so I'm going to type that in, and I'm going to just click on the link, and it opens it up. And it opens it up into the page view that looks very similar, but you'll notice that there is a message here that says that you're not authorized to change this scope. So even though it looks the same as the editor, you can't actually save any edits. And in most cases, you can't even, when you click on the field, you can't even it doesn't open up. You can't even change it. So you are definitely viewing it here. And as a reviewer, you would provide your comments offline. So it has the same kind of legend and the same look and feel. Notice when I'm clicking on the spaces, it's just not able to edit it. But I still can scroll through the whole navigation to find the things that are applicable will show up in green, and in darker text on the table of contents on the right. Things that the editor indicated were not applicable will be red or gray. When I'm ready to, if I wanted to do like track changes or add comments, I would export it to Word. And when you do that, make sure you click that enable editing and then answer yes to that question that pops up. And now it's just like any Word document. I can go into my review and click on track changes. I can scroll through the document. The navigation pane on the left works in terms of the headers. You'll notice in the table of contents where we said it was not applicable, it has an NA by that title. I noticed that there was a little formatting problem on this, so I'm just going to go add a comment. This, all the other ones have numbers and are capitalized, so I'm just changing that there just to show you you can edit and you can use your track changes. You could put a comment there. Any of the user entered information is in bold italics. The standard text is in plain text. And it should be formatted as you would expect it to be. Up at the top, one thing we did want to point out to you is our timestamp. This tells us that it was exported initially from the design scope of service tool and what date. And that would be an indication of what version of the standard text you would be using. And it has the ID number of the project. So we know that this was exported for this on this date. And you can't edit this, it's an image. And we'd ask you not to delete it or remove it either. It should be on any of the scopes of services moving forward. So with that, does anybody have any questions on that particular part?
So
There
just to
are
add
no,
there are no questions? Okay.
no questions at this time.
So just to add to the looking at the little timestamp there, it's actually very crucial to leave that untouched. And one of the purposes behind it is we don't necessarily want to promote the copying and pasting of Word documents to other Word documents. So we don't really want you to, just use 90% of an existing scope to create the new one. We believe that it's going to be much easier to start from the tool itself and import all the information from Work Program. That will save you a lot of trouble developing the scope, and including a template that should really cut down on the amount of time spent creating and developing a stage one scope. That also, the other thing I wanted to add is that little timestamp may not be useful information at the very beginning, but then you get to figure out when the update took place, that we know when we push out the updates, we get to find out what was the latest version of the language that you are using within that scope without actually digging through and making sure that that information was updated, or what version it is that you're actually looking at, whether it's a June 25th and a July 5th. Maybe there was an update that we sent out on July 1st, and that's where we would find out whether future changes or what language was being used to develop that.
Yeah, that's a good point, Mariano. We had seen issues in the past, and not tons of them, but there have been cases where scopes get reused and the numbers get changed, and then there may be some language that was specific to one project that was carried over and inadvertently used on another project or something like that. So, you know, we do want to encourage the use of the tool and not copying and reusing Word documents. Having said that, the ability to create templates, you know, if you want to create a custom template for a specific type of project that you feel that would be useful for reuse, the templates can be created and reused in that same respect.
And that is a great segue to our next section. And because it's after 11 now, I'm thinking, Stephanie, keep an eye on the questions. If there's any more out there that we haven't answered, let's go through the template editor. And then at the end there, we'll make sure we answer even if there's any remaining questions on this section, but just so we can get through the next section, which is.
By the way, Ruth, we are right on time, right when you wanted to be, we're exactly where we wanted to be. So no need to rush. And all the questions coming in this last session should be mostly template related. And we can always go back and look at Bobby's question from earlier on. So with that in mind, it's all yours.
So now in the using the template section, we're going to talk about, you know, why use one, how do I create one, what does it cover, and then what project specific information is imported when you start a new scope from that template. And let me go ahead and get my screen up. Okay, you should be seeing the login page, and I am logging in at this point as a template editor. So I click the sign in, and now you'll see it's the same screen except for one additional option to open the template editor. But first, before I do that, I want to show you how to create one. Template editor shows you how to edit one, but first you have to have created one. And they're created from existing scopes. You can either create a new scope as you did, or you can use one that's already created by somebody else, one of the scope editors in your district. And you do that from you open up the scope that's been created, you go to the Save Options button, and then that last page of the wizard actually opens up again where you see what hasn't been answered. And now though, as a template editor, you have a different option. You can save it as a template rather than just saving it as a scope. So when I click Save as Template, I can name that template, you know, something so you remember what kind of use this is intended for. And then you can give a brief description. Well, actually, it can be a long description. It's 4,000 characters. And then click Save. And then it's saved. And now it's ready to be used by any of the scope editors or template editors in your district. So let me show you how that happens. So I'm going to be starting a scope from scratch. I'm going to click Load. And this time I'm going to select Use a Template. Now it asks me whether am I sure I want to do this, which if you were pulling a scope in that somebody just spent a lot of time on, you could accidentally overwrite it using the template. That's why that question's asked. But in my case, I'm like, yeah, this is a brand new scope. I do want to use it, so I'm going to select yes. And I have a couple of templates now in my district, so I'm going to pick which one that I want to use, and I'm going to click Load. And it loads up the page view of a scope for that new project. But notice how it's added those project-specific information from the work program that are for this new project. But the user input that was provided on the regular scope is still there. Now, some of that I may need to change still because it doesn't apply to this scope. So I can go in and review it and customize it even further. And as the editor or a template editor, I have total ability to change any of this. But you'll notice the advantage of using a template is all these other fields and the information. If you have standard sections and text that you add to most of yours, you can do that in your template so that it comes in with new scopes. Now I want to show you how to edit one, because there might be fields that, like for example, that project description, somebody shouldn't have to delete the old stuff and put in something new. They should be able to just go to the blank field and fill it out for that specific project. So I'm going to edit it, and notice it indicates here which items are project specific. Those are things that you wouldn't edit because it's going to pull it in from the work program for that particular data field. It actually indicates there as project specific data, so you know that when you're going in as a template editor. And the bold italics text in green is actually stuff that was edited. In this case, I'm just going to delete this so that, and then save it so that future users of this template don't have to delete the text that doesn't apply. And just like going through the page view, I can go through the table of contents, I can go through the whole thing, I get back to my save options, and I can click save, and it'll save that template with the same title, same description. If I click the save template button on the right, it actually gives me the option to update the information or save it as a different template. You know, maybe I just have one that's slightly different than another template that I already have. And that is how you create your template. So I'm going to bring up my PowerPoint again and see if we have any questions.
So the first question that I do want to cover is Bobby's from earlier on in the session. Let me see if you know what, I'm not going to try to remember it. Stephanie, what was Bobby's question from early on?
Let's see, How will the template creator know if there are updates to the scope that may affect their scope?
Now that we've covered everything that the template brings in, one of the things it does not do is change the language that is standard for all of the scopes. So it shouldn't be touching anything that is a standard language that we as an agency update regularly or annually. So everything that is part of the scope, that is a standard language for the scope, that is something we do not recommend you changing, because updates will make the changes as the templates are being created. As the scopes are being created, and the templates will adjust the information around it usually.
And what our plan is, and what we're implemented, is that when there's new standard scope language, we will import that into the design scope of service, and that will update the template. You know, that language will update the templates and update the scopes going forward. And I assume, Mariana, you all send out announcements on when those updates to the standard text occurs. Like, is it annually? I'm sorry, I have to ask.
We try to hide it and surprise people with it. So no, we absolutely make an announcement and highlight all the changes. We keep a log of where the updates are coming in and how each of the three major documents are affected, whether it's the scope, the guidelines, or the staff hour estimates. So there's an annual.
So that process hasn't changed. It's
Not
just a
at
new
all.
tool to use the new language, and it'll be incorporated at the same time that announcement's made.
Exactly.
Thank y'all.
We
Our next
cover-
question. I'm sorry, Mariana?
I was just wondering if Bobby, if you're still on the line, if that covers your question. But go ahead, Stephanie.
Our next question is from Susan. Does this new template get the stamp of which version was used?
That date stamp that I showed you in the Word at the very top right-hand corner that actually has the date. So based on that date, we know what version because we know what the publication date of new standard text is.
Okay.
Right, so a scope template that is saved should always have the most current standard scope language. So you don't necessarily have to worry about the version, because when you're creating a scope from a template, it will be the latest standard language. And then when you export it to Word, that will get its own stamp.
Okay.
Yeah, what it won't change is any of the information that is user provided. So if you have, a standard paragraph that you put in a specific section underneath the department standard stuff, that won't change. What changes is that normal font text that's provided by the production support group.
Let's see. I do not see any more questions coming in right now.
Okay, so I think we are just about to wrap up.
I guess that concludes all the little sections from start to finish. I really hope you guys enjoyed this whole series, and we tried very hard to make it as logical as possible, walking through the whole process from logging in all the way to reviewing and creating templates. If you have any questions, you can go ahead and send any of your questions and concerns to anyone here. I would recommend starting with the help desk, as the complexity of the question will be shared with the right people. If you know in particular that I or Rob or Ruth would be the right person, go ahead and contact us directly. But with that, I just want to thank everyone for sticking around. I know it's been almost an hour and a half. These will be videos that are going to be cut down drastically. So they're going to be more bite-sized for anyone coming in to enjoy them part by part as needed. And with that said, once again, thank you all for joining us. And this is the end of the session for training and introduction. So thank you.
All right.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank y'all.
I guess we can stop recording from this point. And if anyone's on the line that's